In this clip, I'll be telling you more about the things that you need to think about when it comes to data management. Data management is all about how and where you store your data. At the start of your research project, you typically write a research data management protocol. And it's important to keep in mind that we're often dealing with sensitive data, so we need to protect the privacy of our participants and adhere to the GDPR and university guidelines. Fortunately, the university has experts on data management that can help you out and give advice on your specific situation. But there are also plenty of resources available to get started on the link that you can find on the slide. Data management can also be important for open science and reproducibility. Of course, we can't just publish all our data online for everyone to see, but there are many other ways in which thinking about data management can help open science and fair data. So data that is findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. We'll go more into open science in a different clip. Utrecht University supports several storage systems, and all come with advantages and disadvantages. So this picture contains systems that are used across the university, but not all of them are equally safe. Because we work with sensitive and critical data about real people, we need to pay more attention to where we store our data than people who study, for example, microorganisms. Especially because we use longitudinal data and need some way to link participants' ideas to names. So there are two ways that I want to highlight, two platforms. First, the O-Drive. It's accessible from your home office through VPN, and it can store very large amounts of data. And it can also be shared with people from within the university. It is stored at the university and backed up daily, so this is quite a secure option. However, if you need to share your data with external parties, such as students, clinicians, or collaborators from another institution, this is not possible. In that case, YODA, which stands for Your Data, may be more useful. This allows you to quite easily change who has access to your folders, and this can also be external people from outside of the university. A downside of YODA that I have noticed is that opening and editing large files, such as videos, takes a lot of time and sometimes freezes your computer, so it may not be the best to use while doing heavy data cleaning. I should also mention that I do recommend some of these other systems, such as Teams, TeamSite, SurfDrive, and OneDrive for storing any information that is not sensitive, such as collection materials, manuals, or manuscripts. Know who has access to your data and how you can change that. If you use YODA, there is a simple form that you can use to make changes to who has access to your folders, whereas this takes a bit more time if you use the O-Drive. But wherever you store your data, keep track of current and past access. So this also includes, for example, students or research assistants who help you with data cleaning. Create an overview of this and keep updating it as you go. Also think about what happens to your data if you can no longer access it. So if your contract ends or you become very ill, it's important that you're not the only one who has access to your data. After all, you don't want your work to have been for nothing. The more data you collect, the more important it is to have a clear structure. How this looks exactly is up to you, and you should figure out what works best for you and your projects. It can be useful to create a document that explains where to find which data. It is especially useful for collaborators, but also for you because you might not remember where you stored a certain file in the future. Try to keep everything in one place, so try to limit the number of storage solutions. So try to store all your data in one place, so your raw data, as well as your clean data, any participant information, data collection procedures, and metadata. Metadata include, but are not limited to, the codebook. You can also include the overview of current and past access here. Now, I'll give some examples from us and how we organize our data. This is an example from the In Transition project, where we have 3 main folders. One is all about the actual data that we collected. The second is all about coordinating the data collection. And the third is all the raw materials that we use, so all the questionnaires, the task explanations, the consent forms, etc. Then within these main folders, we have set up different subfolders to organize the content as well as we can, and we try to keep it consistent across different waves and across different types of information. Another important aspect of data management is metadata, which is any kind of data that describes data. Metadata are useful for when you collaborate with others. They read your metadata and understand your data and where to find what. But it's also really useful for yourself because you won't remember everything you did today, in 2 years, or even tomorrow. So it's useful for every stage of your PhD. And if you're planning on using repositories or sharing your data, it is absolutely necessary to have data that describes your data. The most common example is the codebook, and because it is such an important part of our research, we will go into it in another clip. Metadata can also include any other type of data or information that describes your data. This is also where everything you've kept track of so far comes in. The key message is to keep logbooks of everything that you do, as we talked about in previous weeks as well. In the first week, we talked about first setting up your research design. So keep track of the decisions that you make. So why did you choose this questionnaire and not another? In week 2, we talked about recruitment. So keep track of your planned recruitment and any changes that you had to make to the plan. Also note the reasons why participants refuse to participate for yourself and send them to TEAS. In week 3, we talked about communication. So save all your information letters, flyers, informed consent, anything that you created, as well as email templates and phone call protocols. And if you make changes between waves, keep both or all versions of them. In week 4, we talked about response registration. So keep track of dropout and follow-up. And in this week, we're talking about everything that happens after you enter data collection and how you can anticipate on that. And here, continue keeping track of everything. So keep logbooks of your data cleaning and maybe your data analysis when you start. Log your data structure and what files contain what information, who has access. And this might seem a bit overwhelming, I know. But remember that this is not something you do in one day, but over the course of your PhD. Try to document major steps and decisions in your project, and you'll already be so much better off than any of us were when we first started. How you create your metadata is up to you and the kind of data you're creating. Some metadata fits perfectly in Excel format or just plain text. There are also metadata standards, but many of them require XML, which is not something that was in my skill set when I first started. And some of these standards also are not very applicable to our line of research. So my personal recommendation is to just build it up from the bottom. Just write down what you're doing, what you're thinking, what you've got, and then you can always adapt it later into a more elaborate system if you need it. It even helps just to have a few lines in a notepad file about something that you did.